Welcome. This week we're going to talk about planning your website, and this is part one to a two-part series. So let's go ahead and get started with the first part. Hello, welcome to this video. Today we're going to cover the 10 steps that I recommend to prepare to build your future website. So the 10 steps that we're going to cover today, it doesn't matter if you're building your own website or if you're hiring somebody else to do your website. These are the 10 steps that I would recommend to anyone that's planning on building a website. So let's go ahead and get started. This is a quick overview of the 10 steps for my website planning blueprint. First thing that we need to do for any website is determine the purpose. Find out why you're having to create a website in the first place. The next piece is your market research, making sure that you know who you're talking to through your website and who you're building this website for. After that, making sure that you plan and organize your research and your findings is really important. After that, then we move to the part that you actually create the content. So this is the fun part for me. This is kind of where a lot of people get stuck and is somewhat intimidating. But creating content is really easy after you've done your market research and planning and organizing your ideas and your thoughts. After that, we move on to designing a style guide, which we're going to cover more in detail about all of these in the next few slides. Another very important part of planning your website is finding the right images or creating the right images that go with your website. After that, we move on to outlining your homepage, knowing what is important, what needs to go there. And since it's the most important page in your whole entire website, I really focus on the homepage, but all the pages on your website are important. Then we also cover basics like registering your domain name, selecting a platform for your website, as well as choosing your hosting and what to look for. So let's go ahead and get started on this 10-step website planning blueprint. I'm really excited to kind of share with you all these different steps that I go with my individual clients on how to actually prepare for a website. So let's get started with the first part. Let's go over the first step, which is determining your purpose. This part of planning your website is more about discovering, and it's about beginning with the end in mind. So know what your desired end result will be and why you're creating a website in the first place. Like, are you trying to sell something? Are you trying to educate somebody? Are you trying to inform them? Are you trying to spread a message? There's so many different reasons that you could create a website, and you just need to be crystal clear about what the reason is and what the goal behind that reason is. And then the next one is, who are you creating the website for? So this is going to be moving into the next piece, which is about really knowing your audience. So really knowing who you're talking to through your website, who you're trying to reach, and who your target market is really important. It's also very important to know what your most important goal is. So what is the one thing that you hope to accomplish with this entire website? And then how are you planning to build value in people's lives? So what happens here is sometimes we get caught up in results like, we want to sell this product or we want to sell this service, but actually focusing more on your audience and building value is going to be more important and actually give you better results in the end than just focusing just only on your product or only on your service. So always, as you're determining your purpose and creating your goals, always think of ways that you can build value around that. So determining your purpose is really the first step. And then now we can transition into the next step, which is researching your target market. So this is a really important, very crucial step. If you don't do this right, everything else on your website will not make sense. And so a lot of this is about learning who your audience is, who your target market is, and who you're looking to help or serve. Like, what is the perfect customer or the perfect prospect for your product or service? Where do they congregate? Do they all hang out on Facebook, or do they tweet more? Would you find them listening to a podcast? Would you find them going to different local events in your area? Just kind of knowing where they congregate, who their colleagues are, and who is influential to them is really important. Also, because this helps you know where you need to be, and that way you can get those people's attention. Another piece of this is how you can speak their language. So a lot of times there's certain industries that you have to know a lot of the lingo to fit into the actual crowd. So if you don't know what language that particular target market is using, and you're using really like basic words and they're actually talking very high level words, more highly educated, then they can feel like you're actually talking over them, or you're talking to under them, or you're not really directly speaking with them and trying to have a conversation with them directly. They might feel offended, either that you don't understand them or that you're just like talking way over their head. So this brings us to the next piece, which is going to be discovering what their biggest concerns are. What are their biggest pain points? What keeps them up at night? Why would they be searching for your product or service? Like, what is their internal motivation to go out and seek that product or service that you have? So just knowing their concerns, their problems, their motivations, all that is very important. And this will actually help you create really good content in the future just by knowing their pain points. Next, we can talk about what the industry leaders look like and who the competitors are in your marketplace. Like, I don't really focus on competition and trying to compare myself, but just being aware of the competition is really good, and seeing a little bit of what they're doing. Now, do this with a tad bit of caution and realize that a lot of your competition doesn't know what the heck they're doing. So some of their websites that you might go look at, some of the websites may look good, but they're not producing good results. So kind of looking at competitors and seeing what's out there is really good, but then don't completely copy it or try to integrate it into your website, because sometimes they might actually have bad results when it comes to actually getting leads or capturing people's attention. So just because a website looks really beautiful and wonderful does not always mean that it works really good and that there's good results coming from that. And I think that's a huge misconception around the internet, is like, oh my goodness, this person's website is so beautiful. I bet they spent thousands of dollars on it. And it's like, yes, but are they getting any good results? Are they actually capturing leads? Is the website speaking to their target market, or is it just like beautiful without any result? Another piece is knowing where to find their problems and objections. So finding out where you can listen to your audience. What this means, it might seem a little bit weird, but maybe going to Facebook or Twitter and finding your perfect client. So, and kind of following them and seeing what they do, what they post, what kind of things they like, what kind of things they complain about, what kind of questions they have for people, and just knowing them overall by just not particularly just as an individual that needs your product or service, but just on a personal level that is like, okay, well, if I'm trying to be somebody's friend, what do I really need to know about these people? Because knowing your market, who you're speaking to, and the people that you really want to be friends with, because those are the people that you want to help and serve, and the people that you want to speak to when it comes to them coming to your website. So let's go ahead and move on to the third step. The third step is about planning and organizing your individual pages. So the first piece of this is finding out how many pages you will need. Like, generally speaking, there's a home page, about page, contact page, service page, products page, that kind of thing. It's just kind of like the top 5 pages that any website will actually have. So just knowing how many pages you'll need is really big, because that can help you know exactly what will go on your navigation and what you're going to need to really focus on. So like I said, there's those 5 kind of common pages. Now, you might have a very specific need for a different page that I didn't mention, and that's perfectly okay. But just being aware of what pages you'll need is really a great place to start. The next piece is about determining the purpose for each page in one simple sentence. So what happens here is people get bogged down about like, oh my goodness, so this is going to be an about page. What am I going to write in my about page? And so they kind of get stuck. But if you can summarize what you're going to write about in one sentence, that's a great place to start. So write a summary of each of your pages in one sentence. This keeps it kind of simple and it's not as overwhelming as trying to like write out all your content for each of the individual pages in one sitting, because that's kind of like overwhelming. Summarizing each page in one sentence. So a really short about, a really short summary of your products, a really short summary of how they can contact you. Just one sentence, that's it. That's all you really need for each of your individual pages. And next, we can move on to your navigation's intended order. So what that means is, so let's say that you're planning on having 5 pages. So the most important page on your website, like I mentioned earlier, is your homepage. So what is your next most important page? It could be that you're trying to get them to download a free trial. It could be that you're wanting them to make an appointment. It could be like anything that you want it to be. Generally, the contact page is the last page on your navigation. Like, this isn't always true, but just kind of organizing your navigation and having like a short list of what's going to be first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and so on, just by level of importance. So the most important page is first, and although the contact page is not the least important page, it usually tends to be last. But also deciding what the other pages in between and their order is really important, because this kind of helps you later on with planning out your homepage. Next, we're going to go ahead and talk about how you will balance your content and your images. So what some people do is they sit down, they're planning their website, they're organizing their pages, and a lot of times you either have too much content or not enough content, and you don't break it down enough with using images and videos and other media. So what ends up happening is a lot of people will not just stay on your website to read like pages upon pages of content. So you need to really think about breaking it down, finding images, and finding ways to incorporate images where they flow with your content and they're not like in the way of your content. They're kind of guiding people through your content. The next part is about drafting out a list of content for each page. So what that means is, now that you have your one sentence for each of your pages, kind of make like a little list, and it could be like a bullet list of like 3 points to make on that page. And you can use like Word or Note, or you can actually write this out like on a piece of paper. Just kind of have one sentence of each of your pages, and then your 3 most important things to say, like the 3 things that you're going to cover in that page. And so, for example, on your About page, you may have a 1-sentence summary of your About page, but you might also cover three pieces, which could be like why you got started in your business. The next piece could be a little bit of background about you and like your education and what qualifies you to do this business or provide this service. And then the next piece could be more about like the kind of people that you have already helped. So just having like a little bit of an idea about what you're going to cover on each page is really good. Just like, it doesn't even have to be 3 points. It can be 2 to 3 points for each of the pages. Obviously, your contact page will not have 3 points. It might just be, here's a contact page, here's our contact information, please fill out this form. So not every single page will have, 3 key points, but kind of draft it out and feel for yourself what feels right for you. And you can come and do this step later. The 1-sentence summary is actually more important than the 3 key points on that page. That being said, let's go ahead and move on to the next piece, which is step number 4, brainstorming and creating your content. So it is my belief that nobody in your industry and nobody in your market knows your product and your service as well as you do. So I really encourage you to write your own content. And this can sound really overwhelming or intimidating to some people, but writing your own content is actually going to give you better results because you know your target market better than anyone else. And nobody else can really duplicate your personality, your voice, and your tone when they're writing the content. So when I say creating your own content, this does not mean that you have to write a large amount of content for yourself. So sometimes people feel intimidated by that, And it's okay to actually find creative ways of creating that content. Like if you feel comfortable using video, then you can create some content through video. If you feel comfortable recording your voice, then it's okay to record your voice and having someone else, type it out for you. These are a few of the other suggestions that I can make, which is have someone conduct and record an interview. So what that means is it's sort of like a brain dump, like more of an audio brain dump where someone's asking you questions. This can be questions about your audience. This could be questions about your products. This could be questions about your mission, your vision, like those kind of different things. And just have someone record that interview or record it for yourself on your phone or your iPad or tablet or whatever device that you have that will enable you to record that. You can also voice record yourself, and like this could be just you closing yourself off in a room and just having a brainstorming session about everything that you want to cover on each of the different pages and just speaking everything. And like I said, just hiring someone to actually type it for you and clean it up and organize it in a neat format that's easily digestible to put on the website. Another piece is whoever is building your website, or if someone else is helping you with this project, you can discuss and brainstorm over a phone call all the different pages on your website. You can actually say out loud your one sentence that's going to summarize each of your pages, and then touch on the 3 different points that you want to cover. So if you also work for a place, or if you have employees, other employees can submit their ideas. So what happens is content can't be created from a vacuum. If you just like lock yourself up and only like look at what your point of view is on content, it's kind of a very limited view on content. So I really encourage you to either brainstorm with someone else, or do interviews, or try to include other people whenever possible so that you can have a broader range of an idea of what kind of content to create for your website. And it's not just coming from like one single place that it may or may not have a limited view on the overall business goals and the overall website goals. And last but not least, if you are just absolutely clueless about what to write and you're just very stuck in like this is a piece that's holding you back from your website, is like you don't have the content, so that's like preventing you from moving forward, then I recommend at this point to go ahead and look in your area, or ask different people in your industry and hire a copywriter. Like this is the absolute last thing to do. Not that I don't recommend copywriters. I actually have a few friends that are really excellent copywriters, but they specify in a certain industry. So try to find a copywriter that writes for people in your industry. So try to find an industrial copywriter, or try to find, whatever industry you're in, try to find a copywriter that has strength in that industry and that has previous clients that are similar to what you have that you want to write, and make sure that that person has actually written different pieces of content for that particular industry that you're in. So if you really must, go ahead and outsource and hire a copywriter. Like I said, this is usually not my most recommended way, but if having no content is what's holding you from creating your website, then you need to do whatever it takes to get that content written, whether it's from you, your employees, or someone around you, or by hiring a copywriter. So creating your content is a really key ingredient to the rest of your website, and you cannot create your content without actually knowing your audience, like we spoke on a previous step about really knowing your audience, who you're talking to, what language they're using, what kind of lingo they like to throw around, and different things like that. So this is actually a really juicy part and exciting piece of websites for me, but I do understand that not everyone is really excited about this part, but it is something that can be worked out. You just got to either break it down to small pieces, or share it with someone else that can actually help you, or just have someone that does everything for you, as long as you know what specific points that you would like for them to cover. After you have your content, the next step, which is really fun and exciting for me as well, is designing your style guide. So this is where it gets really fun. This is where you can get to play around with your logo. This is also where you can kind of play with the color schemes and come up with like creative different ideas of things that you would like to incorporate on your website. This is also where you make the decision of what the theme of your website will look like. What's your theme? Like, what's your style? Some people like more modern look. Some people like vintage. Some people like more business, more professional, more serious. So really think of what is the message that you're trying to communicate with your audience. Like, what do you want their first impression of you to be? Do you want it to be that you're creative, that you're fun, that you're intelligent, that you're professional? Just kind of think of the different kind of moods that you want to encourage people to feel. And that's going to be determined on your style and what kind of theme that you go with. Another piece of this is selecting the right fonts. So it's good to get input from other people and kind of look at other websites and see what they're using as far as fonts goes. More than likely something that's easy to read, although I think there's sometimes like women love to have like really beautiful fonts that are like elegant and wonderful, and they're just so swirly and great. But then just kind of keeping in mind that those kind of fonts are really hard to read, especially when the font is a little bit smaller. So just keeping different things in mind when it comes to as far as like readability. Is the font easy to read? Is the font something that people don't have to sit there and decipher if it's an A or if it's a D, that kind of thing. So just really looking at fonts, making it something kind of universal. And you can have fun with some of the fonts. Like, for example, on your headings can be a little bit more fun and creative. But a lot of your font for your body and for, the text on your page, it just needs to be clean and simple. Keep it easy to read and keep it where it's light on the eyes and they don't have to really strain themselves. Now, when I'm talking about fonts, also consider the color. So, for example, on this slide, I'm using very good contrast. So it's black text on white background. And so if you're using like a font that's kind of really flowery and pretty and swirly, and then it also has like a dark background and the font looks a little bit like it blends in. So realize that sometimes you need to really think about your target market and who you're catering to. And so also make sure that you pay attention to the kind of contrast that you're using whenever you're using the different fonts on your page. The next part is about finding examples of websites that you like. So if there's a particular website that you really like the kind of design they're using, or you like a particular color scheme that they have, just kind of making notes of that and having like 2 or 3 websites that you can kind of refer to and look at if you're kind of feeling a little bit lost. This is also the phase where you can consider kind of your branding and other design elements. Like, for example, are you going to be using a watermark? Are you going to be labeling all your images with your logo? Like, what kind of different things will make you stand out whenever your content is being shared on social media websites and things like that? Just kind of being aware of that on the back of your mind and keeping your eyes open for what other people are using and what kind of branding and other design elements that you can actually use. So that really covers the 5th piece, which is designing your style guide. So those are the first 5 steps to create your website, to plan your website and put everything together. Tune in next week and we'll go ahead and cover the next 5 steps. Thank you and see you then.